I'm sure you've heard the news. But what does jihad actually mean? Let's find out together. The word jihad often sparks confusion, but did you know it simply means struggle or striving? According to Prophet Muhammad, jihad is primarily an inner journey. It's about self-improvement, fighting personal weaknesses and striving for moral excellence. There's also the concept of jihad by the tongue, which involves speaking truth and spreading knowledge. And yes, there's jihad by the hand, which emphasizes helping others and making a positive impact in your community. Importantly, Prophet Muhammad taught that jihad is never about harming others. It's about living a life that reflects compassion, justice, and peace. So next time you hear the word jihad, remember it's about bettering yourself and the world around you. And that's something we all can strive for. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 41, narrated by Abdullah bin Masud. I asked Allah's apostle, "O Allah's apostle, what is the best deed?" He replied, "To offer the prayers at their early stated fixed times." I asked, "What is next in goodness?" He replied, "To be good and dutiful to your parents." I further asked, "What is next in goodness?" He replied, "To participate in jihad in Allah's cause." I did not ask Allah's apostle anymore, and if I had asked him more, he would have told me more. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 42, narrated by Ibn Abbas. Allah's apostle said, "There is no hijra, that is migration, from Mecca to Medina, after the conquest of Mecca, but jihad and good intention remain, and if you are called by the Muslim ruler for fighting, go forth immediately." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 43, narrated by Aisha, that she said, "O Allah's apostle, we consider jihad as the best deed. Should we not fight in Allah's cause?" He said, "The best jihad for women is Hajj Mabrur, that is Hajj which is done according to the Prophet's tradition and is accepted by Allah." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 44, narrated by Abu Huraira. A man came to Allah's apostle and said, "Instruct me as to such a deed as equals jihad in reward." He replied, "I do not find such a deed." Then he added, "Can you, while the Muslim fighter is in the battlefield, enter your mosque to perform prayers without cease and fast and never break your fast?" The man said, "But who can do that?" Abu Huraira added, "The mujahid, that is Muslim fighter, is rewarded even for the footsteps of his horse while it wanders about for grazing, tied in a long rope." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 45, narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Somebody asked, "O Allah's apostle, who is the best among the people?" Allah's apostle replied, "A believer who strives his utmost in Allah's cause with his life and property." They asked, "Who is next?" He replied, "A believer who stays in one of the mountain paths worshipping Allah and leaving the people secure from his mischief." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 46, narrated by Abu Huraira. I heard Allah's apostle saying, "The example of a mujahid in Allah's cause, and Allah knows better who really strives in his cause, is like a person who fasts and prays continuously. Allah guarantees that he will admit the mujahid in his cause into paradise if he is killed. Otherwise he will return him to his home safely with rewards and war booty." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 47, narrated by Anas bin Malik. Allah's apostle used to visit Haram bint Milhan, who would offer him reals. Haram was the wife of Ubadah bin as-Samit. Allah's apostle once visited her and she provided him with food and started looking for lice in his head. Then Allah's apostle slept and afterwards woke up smiling. Haran asked, "What causes you to smile, O Allah's apostle?" He said, "Some of my followers who, in a dream, were presented before me as fighters in Allah's cause on board a ship amidst this sea caused me to smile. They were as kings on the thrones, or like kings on the thrones." Ishaq, a sub-narrator, is not sure as to which expression the Prophet used. Haram said, "O Allah's apostle, invoke Allah that he makes me one of them." Allah's apostle invoked Allah for her and slept again and woke up smiling. Once again Haram asked, "What makes you smile, O Allah's apostle?" He replied, "Some of my followers were presented to me as fighters in Allah's cause," repeating the same dream. Haram said, "O Allah's apostle, invoke Allah that he makes me one of them." He said, "You are amongst the first ones." It happened that she sailed on the sea during the caliphate of Mu'awiyah bin Abi Sufyan, and after she disembarked she fell down from her riding animal and died. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 48, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Whoever believes in Allah and His Apostle, offer prayer perfectly and fasts the month of Ramadan, will rightfully be granted paradise by Allah no matter whether he fights in Allah's cause or remains in the land where he is born." The people said, "O Allah's Apostle, shall we acquaint the people with thee as good news?" He said paradise has 100 grades which Allah has reserved for the mujahideen who fight in His cause, and the distance between each of 2 grades is like the distance between the heaven and the earth. So when you ask Allah for something, ask for Al-Firdaus, which is the best and highest part of paradise. That is, the sub-narrator added, I think the Prophet also said, above it, that is Al-Firdaus, is the throne of beneficent, that is Allah, and from it originate the rivers of paradise. Volume 4, Book 52, number 49, narrated by Samura. The Prophet said, Last night 2 men came to me in a dream and made me ascend a tree and then admitted me into a better and superior house, better of which I have never seen. One of them said, This house is the house of martyrs. Volume 4, Book 52, number 50. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, A single endeavor of fighting in Allah's cause in the forenoon or in the afternoon is better than the world and whatever is in it. Volume 4, Book 52, number 51, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, A place in paradise as small as a bow is better than all that on which the sun rises and sets, i.e. all the world. He also said, A single endeavor in Allah's cause in the afternoon or in the forenoon is better than all that on which the sun rises and sets. Volume 4, Book 52, number 52, narrated by Sahl bin Sa'd. The Prophet said, A single endeavor in Allah's cause in the afternoon and in the forenoon is better than the world and whatever is in it. Volume 4, Book 52, number 53. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, Nobody who dies and finds good from Allah, in the hereafter, would wish to come back to this world, even if he were given the whole world and whatever is in it, except the martyr who, on seeing the superiority of martyrdom, would like to come back to the world and get killed again in Allah's cause. Narrated Anas. The Prophet said, A single endeavor of fighting in Allah's cause in the afternoon or in the forenoon is better than all the world and whatever is in it. A place in paradise as small as the bow or lash of one of you is better than all the world and whatever is in it. And if a houri from paradise appeared to the people of the earth, she would fill the space between heaven and the earth with light and pleasant scent, and her head cover is better than the world and whatever is in it. Volume 4, Book 52, number 54, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, By him in whose hands my life is, were it not for some men amongst the believers who dislike to be left behind me and whom I cannot provide with means of conveyance, I would certainly never remain behind any Saraya army unit, setting out in Allah's cause. By him in whose hands my life is, I would love to be martyred in Al-Wanah's cause, and then get resurrected and then get martyred and then get resurrected again and then get martyred and then get resurrected again and then get martyred. Volume 4, Book 52, number 55, narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet delivered a sermon and said, Zayd took the flag and was martyred, and then Jafar took the flag and was martyred, and then Abdullah bin Rawaha took the flag and was martyred too. And then Khalid bin al-Walid took the flag, though he was not appointed as a commander, and Allah made him victorious. The Prophet further added, It would not please us to have them with us. Ayub, a sub-narrator, added, Or the Prophet shedding tears said, It would not please them to be with us. Volume 4, Book 52, number 56. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Haram said, Once the Prophet slept in my house near to me and got up smiling. I said, What makes you smile? He replied, Some of my followers who, that is in a dream, were presented to me sailing on this green sea like kings on thrones. I said, O Allah's apostle, invoke Allah to make me one of them. So the Prophet invoked Allah for her and went to sleep again. He did the same, that is, got up and told his dream, and Haran repeated her question and he gave the same reply. She said, Invoke Allah to make me one of them. He said, You are among the first batch. Later on it happened that she went out in the company of her husband, Ubadah bin as-Samit, who went for Jihad, and it was the first time the Muslims undertook a naval expedition led by Muawiyah. When the expedition came to an end and they were returning to Sham, a riding animal was presented to her to ride, but the animal let her fall, and thus she died. Volume 4, Book 52, number 57, narrated by Anas. The Prophet sent 70 men from the tribe of Bani Salim to the tribe of Bani Amir. When they reached there, my maternal uncle said to them, I will go ahead of you, and if they allow me to convey the message of Allah's apostle, it will be all right. Otherwise, you will remain close to me. So he went ahead of them, and the pagans granted him security, but while he was reporting the message of the Prophet, they beckoned to one of their men who stabbed him to death. My maternal uncle said, Allah is greater. By the Lord of the Kaaba I am successful. After that they attached the rest of the party, and killed them all except a lame man who went up to the top of the mountain. Hammam, a sub-narrator, said, I think another man was saved along with him. Gabriel informed the prophet that they, i.e. the martyrs, met their Lord, and he was pleased with them and made them pleased. We used to recite, Inform our people that we have met our Lord, he is pleased with us, and he has made us pleased. Later on this Quranic verse was cancelled. The prophet invoked Allah for 40 days to curse the murderers from the tribe of Ral, Dakwan, Bani Liyan, and Ba-Musaya who disobeyed Allah and his apostle. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 58, narrated by Jundab bin Sufyan. In one of the holy battles, a finger of Allah's apostle got wounded and bled. He said, You are just a finger that bled, and what you got is in Allah's cause. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 59, narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle said, By him in whose hands my soul is, whoever is wounded in Allah's cause, and Allah knows well who gets wounded in his cause, will come on the day of resurrection with his wound having the color of blood, but the scent of musk. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 60, narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas. That Abu Sufyan told him that Heraclius said to him, I asked you about the outcome of your battles with him, that is the prophet, and you told me that you fought each other with alternate success. So the apostles are tested in this way, but the ultimate victory is always theirs. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 61, narrated by Anas. My uncle Anas bin an-Nadr was absent from the battle of Badr. He said, O Allah's apostle, I was absent from the first battle you fought against the pagans. By Allah, if Allah gives me a chance to fight the pagans, no doubt, Allah will see how bravely I will fight. On the day of Uhud, when the Muslims turned their backs and fled, he said, O Allah, I apologize to you for what these, that is his companions, have done, and I denounce what these, that is the pagans, have done. Then he advanced, and Sa'd bin Mu'adh met him. He said, O Sa'd bin Mu'adh, by the Lord of an-Nadr paradise, I am smelling its aroma coming from before the mountain of Uhud. Later on Sa'd said, O Allah's apostle, I cannot achieve or do what he, that is Anas bin an-Nadr, did. We found more than 80 wounds by swords and arrows on his body. We found him dead, and his body was mutilated so badly that none except his sister could recognize him by his fingers. We used to think that the following verse was revealed concerning him and other men of his sort. Among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with Allah. 33.23. His sister Arubaya broke a front tooth of a woman, and Allah's apostle ordered for retaliation. On that Anas bin an-Nadr said, O Allah's apostle, by him who has sent you with the truth, my sister's tooth shall not be broken. Then the opponents of Anas's sister accepted the compensation and gave up the claim of retaliation. So Allah's apostle said, There are some people amongst Allah's slaves whose oaths are fulfilled by Allah when they take them. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 62, narrated by Kharija bin Zaid bin Thabit said, When the Quran was compiled from various written manuscripts, one of the verses of Surat al-Ahzab was missing, which I used to hear Allah's apostle reciting. I could not find it except with Khuzaimah bin Thabit al-Ansari, whose witness Allah's apostle regarded as equal to the witness of two men, and the verse was, Among the believers are men who have been true to what they covenanted with Allah. 33.23, Volume 4, Book 52, Number 63, narrated by Al-Bara. A man whose face was covered with an iron mask, that is clad in armor, came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's apostle, shall I fight or embrace Islam first? The Prophet said, Embrace Islam first and then fight. So he embraced Islam and was martyred. Allah's apostle said, A little work, but a great reward. He did very little after embracing Islam, but he will be rewarded in abundance. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 64, narrated by Anas bin Malik Arubai bint al-Bara. The mother of Hartha bin Suraka came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Prophet, will you tell me about Hartha? Hartha has been killed, that is martyred, on the day of Badr with an arrow thrown by an unidentified person. She added, If he is in paradise I will be patient, otherwise I will weep bitterly for him. He said, O mother of Hartha, there are gardens in paradise and your son got the Firdaus al-A'la, that is the best place in paradise. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 65, narrated by Abu Musa. A man came to the Prophet and asked, A man fights for war booty. Another fights for fame and a third fights for showing off. Which of them fights in Allah's cause? The Prophet said, he who fights that Allah's word, that is Islam, should be superior, fights in Allah's cause. Volume 4, Book 52, number 66, narrated by Abu Abs, who is Abdur Rahman bin Jabir. Allah's apostle said, anyone whose both feet get covered with dust in Allah's cause will not be touched by the hell, fire. Volume 4, Book 52, number 67, narrated by Ikrimah that Ibn Abbas told him and Ali bin Abdullah to go to Abu Sa'id and listen to some of his narrations, so they both went, and saw Abu Sa'id and his brother irrigating a garden belonging to them. When he saw them, he came up to them and sat down with his legs drawn up and wrapped in his garment, and said, during the construction of the mosque of the Prophet, we carried the adobe of the mosque 1 brick at a time, while Ammar used to carry 2 at a time. The Prophet passed by Ammar and removed the dust off his head and said, may Allah be merciful to Ammar. He will be killed by a rebellious aggressive group. Ammar will invite them to obey Allah, and they will invite him to the hell, fire. Volume 4, Book 52, number 68, narrated by Aisha, when Allah's apostle returned on the day of the battle of Al-Khandaq, that is trench, he put down his arms and took a bath. Then Gabriel, whose head was covered with dust, came to him saying, you have put down your arms, by Allah I have not put down my arms yet. Allah's apostle said, where to go now? Gabriel said, this way, pointing towards the tribe of Bani Qurayza. So Allah's apostle went out towards them. Volume 4, Book 52, number 69, narrated by Anas bin Malik. For 30 days Allah's apostle invoked Allah to curse those who had killed the companions of Birmana. He invoked evil upon the tribes of Ral, Dakwan, and Usaya, who disobeyed Allah and his apostle. There was reveled about those who were killed at Birmana, a Quranic verse we used to recite, but it was cancelled later on. The verse was, inform our people that we have met our Lord, he is pleased with us, and he has made us pleased. Volume 4, Book 52, number 70, narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. Some people drank alcohol in the morning of the day of the battle of Jihad and were martyred on the same day. Sufyan was asked, were they martyred in the last part of the day? He replied, such information does not occur in the narration. Volume 4, Book 52, number 71, narrated by Jabir. My father's mutilated body was brought to the Prophet and was placed in front of him. I went to uncover his face, but my companions forbade me. Then mourning cries of a lady were heard, and it was said that she was either the daughter or the sister of Amr. The Prophet said, why is she crying? Or said, do not cry, for the angels are still shading him with their wings. Al-Bukhari asked Sadka, a sub-narrator, does the narration include the expression, till he was lifted? The latter replied, Jabir may have said it. Volume 4, Book 52, number 72, narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, nobody who enters paradise likes to go back to the world even if he got everything on the earth, except a mujahid who wishes to return to the world so that he may be martyred 10 times because of the dignity he receives from Allah. Narrated Al-Mughira bin Shuba. Our Prophet told us about the message of our Lord that, whoever amongst us is killed will go to paradise. Umar asked the Prophet, is it not true that our men who are killed will go to paradise and theirs, those of the pagans, will go to the hell fire? The Prophet said yes. Volume 4, Book 52, number 73, narrated by Abdullah bin Abi Awfa, Allah's apostle said, know that paradise is under the shades of swords. Volume 4, Book 52, number 74, narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's apostle said, once Solomon son of David said, by Allah, tonight I will have sexual intercourse with 100 or 99 women, each of whom will give birth to a knight who will fight in Allah's cause. On that that is if Allah wills, but he did not say, Allah willing. Therefore only one of those women conceived and gave birth to a half-man. By him in whose hands Muhammad's life is, if he had said Allah willing, he would have begotten sons, all of whom would have been knights striving in Allah's cause. Volume 4, Book 52, number 74, narrated by Anas. The Prophet was the best, the bravest, and the most generous of all the people. Once when the people of Medina got frightened, the Prophet rode a horse and went ahead of them and said, we found this horse very fast. Volume 4, Book 52, number 75, narrated by Muhammad bin Jubair. Jubair bin Mut'im told me that while he was in the company of Allah's apostle with the people returning from Hunain, some people, Bedouins, caught hold of the Prophet and started begging of him so much so that he had to stand under a kind of thorny tree, that is Samura, and his cloak was snatched away. The Prophet stopped and said, "Give me my cloak. If I had as many camels as these thorny trees, I would have distributed them amongst you, and you will not find me a miser or a liar or a coward." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 76. Narrated by Amr bin Maimun al-Audi. Sa'd used to teach his sons the following words as a teacher teaches his students the skill of writing, and used to say that Allah's apostle used to seek refuge with Allah from them, that is the evils, at the end of every prayer. The words are, "O Allah, I seek refuge with you from cowardice, and seek refuge with you from being brought back to a bad stage of old life, and seek refuge with you from the afflictions of the world, and seek refuge with you from the punishments in the grave." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 77, narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet used to say, "O Allah, I seek refuge with you from helplessness, laziness, cowardice, and feeble old age. I seek refuge with you from afflictions of life and death, and seek refuge with you from the punishment in the grave." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 78, narrated by As-Sa'ib bin Yazid. I was in the company of Talha bin Ubaidullah, Sa'd, Al-Miqdad bin al-Aswad, and Abdur Rahman bin Auf, and I heard none of them narrating anything from Allah's apostle, but Talha was talking about the day of the battle of Uhud. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 79, narrated by Ibn Abbas. On the day of the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet said, "There is no emigration after the conquest but jihad and intentions. When you are called by the Muslim ruler for fighting, go forth immediately." See Hadith number 42, Volume 4, Book 52, Number 80, narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's apostle said, "Allah welcomes two men with a smile, one of whom kills the other and both of them enter paradise. One fights in Allah's cause and gets killed. Later on, Allah forgives the killer who also get martyred in Allah's cause." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 80, narrated by Abu Huraira. I went to Allah's apostle while he was at Khaybar after it had fallen in the Muslims' hands. I said, "O Allah's apostle, give me a share from the land of Khaybar." One of the sons of Sa'id bin al-As said, "O Allah's apostle, do not give him a share." I said, "This is the murderer of Ibn Kawqal." The son of Sa'id bin al-As said, "Strange, a wabber, that is guinea pig, who has come down to us from the mountain of Kaduim, that is grazing place of sheep, blames me for killing a Muslim who was given superiority by Allah because of me, and Allah did not disgrace me at his hands, that is, was not killed as an infidel." The sub-narrator said, "I do not know whether the Prophet gave him a share or not." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 81, narrated by Anas bin Malik. In the lifetime of the Prophet, Abu Talha did not fast because of the jihad, but after the Prophet died I never saw him without fasting except on Eidul Fitr and Eidul Akla. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 82, narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's apostle said, "5 are regarded as martyrs. They are those who die because of plague, abdominal disease, drowning, or a falling building, etc., and the martyrs in Allah's cause." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 83, narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, "Pledge is the cause of martyrdom of every Muslim, who dies because of it." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 84, narrated by Al-Bara, when the divine inspiration. Those of the believers who sit at home was revealed the Prophet sent for Zayd bin Thabit, who came with a shoulder blade and wrote on it. Ibn Maktum complained about his blindness, and on that the following revelation came, "Not equal are those believers who sit at home, except those who are disabled, by injury, or are blind or lame, etc., and those who strive hard and fight in the way of Allah with their wealth and lives." 4.95, Volume 4, Book 52, Number 85, narrated by Sal bin Sa'd as-Sa'idi. I saw Marwan bin al-Hakam sitting in the mosque, so I came forward and sat by his side. He told us that Zayd bin Thabit had told him that Allah's apostle had dictated to him the divine verse. "Not equal are those believers who sit at home, and those who strive hard and fight in the cause of Allah with their wealth and lives." 4.95. Zayd said, "Ibn Maktum came to the Prophet while he was dictating to me that very verse. On that Ibn Maktum said, 'O Allah's apostle, if I had power I would surely take part in jihad.' He was a blind man, so Allah sent down revelation to his apostle while his thigh was on mine, and it became so heavy for me that I feared that my thigh would be broken. Then that state of the Prophet was over after Allah revealed, except those who are disabled by injury or are blind or lame, etc. 4.95. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 86, narrated by Salim Abu an-Nadir. Abdullah bin Abi Awfa wrote, and I read what he wrote, that Allah's apostle said, "When you face them, that is your enemy, then be patient." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 87, narrated by Anas. Allah's apostle went towards the Khandak, that is trench, and saw the emigrants and the Ansar digging in a very cold morning, as they did not have slaves to do that for them. When he noticed their fatigue and hunger, he said, "O Allah, the real life is that of the hereafter, so please, forgive the Ansar and the emigrants." In its reply, the emigrants and the Ansar said, "We are those who have given a pledge of allegiance to Muhammad, that we will carry on jihad as long as we live." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 88, narrated by Anas. The emigrants and the Ansar started digging the trench around Medina, carrying the earth on their backs and saying, "We are those who have given a pledge of allegiance to Muhammad, that we will carry on jihad as long as we live." The Prophet kept on replying, "O Allah, there is no good except the good of the hereafter, so confer your blessings on the Ansar and the emigrants." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 89, narrated by Al-Bara. The Prophet went on carrying, that is the earth, and saying, "Without you, O Allah, we would have got no guidance." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 90, narrated by Al-Bara. On the day of the battle of Al-Azab, that is clans, I saw the Prophet carrying earth, and the earth was covering the whiteness of his abdomen. And he was saying, "Without you, O Allah, we would have got no guidance, nor given in charity, nor prayed. So please bless us with tranquility and make firm our feet when we meet our enemies. Indeed, these people have rebelled against, oppressed us, but never shall we yield if they try to bring affliction upon us." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 91, narrated by Anas. We returned from the Ghazwa of Tabuk along with the Prophet. See Hadith number 92 below, Volume 4, Book 52, Number 92, narrated by Anas. While the Prophet was in a Ghazwa, he said, "Some people have remained behind us in Medina, and we never crossed a mountain path or a valley, but they were with us, that is sharing the reward with us, as they have been held back by a legal excuse." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 93, narrated by Abu Sa'id. I heard the Prophet saying, "Indeed, anyone who fasts for one day for Allah's pleasure, Allah will keep his face away from the hell fire for a distance covered by a journey of 70 years. Volume 4, Book 52, Number 94, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Whoever spends two things in Allah's cause will be called by all the gatekeepers of paradise, who will be saying, 'O so-and-so, come here.'" Abu Bakr said, "O Allah's apostle, such persons will never be destroyed." The Prophet said, "I hope you will be one of them." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 95, narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's apostle ascended the pulpit and said, "Nothing worries me as to what will happen to you after me, except the temptation of worldly blessings which will be conferred on you." Then he mentioned the worldly pleasures. He started with the one, that is the blessings, and took up the other, that is the pleasures. A man got up saying, "O Allah's apostle, can the good bring about evil?" The Prophet remained silent, and we thought that he was being inspired divinely, so all the people kept silent with awe. Then the Prophet wiped the sweat off his face and asked, "Where is the present questioner? Do you think wealth is good?" He repeated thrice, adding, "No doubt good produces nothing but good. Indeed, it is like what grows on the banks of a stream, which either kills or nearly kills the grazing animals because of gluttony, except the vegetation-eating animal, which eats till both its flanks are full, that is, till it gets satisfied, and then stands in the sun, and defecates and urinates, and again starts grazing. This worldly property is sweet vegetation. How excellent the wealth of the Muslim is, if it is collected through legal means, and is spent in Allah's cause and on orphans, poor people and travelers. But he who does not take it legally is like an eater who is never satisfied, and his wealth will be a witness against him on the day of resurrection." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 96, narrated by Zayd bin Khalid. Allah's apostle said, "He who prepares a ghazi going in Allah's cause is given a reward equal to that of a ghazi, and he who looks after properly the dependents of a ghazi going in Allah's cause is given a reward equal to that of ghazi." Volume 4, Book 52, Number 97, narrated by Anas. The Prophet used not to enter any house in Medina except the house of Sulaim besides those of his wives. When he was asked why, he said, "I take pity on her as her brother was killed in my company." Volume 4, Book 52, number 98, narrated by Ibn Aun. Once Musa bin Anas, while describing the Battle of Yamama, said, Anas bin Malik went to Thabit bin Qais, who had lifted his clothes from his thighs and was applying hunut to his body. Anas asked, "Oh, uncle, what is holding you back from the battle?" He replied, "Oh, my nephew, I am coming just now," and went on perfuming himself with hunut. Then he came and sat in the row. Anas then mentioned that the people fled from the battlefield. On that Thabit said, "Clear the way for me to fight the enemy. We would never do so, that is flee, in the company of Allah's apostle. How bad the habits you have acquired from your enemies." Volume 4, Book 52, number 99, narrated by Jabir. The Prophet said, "Who will bring me the information about the enemy on the day of the battle of Al-Azab, that is clans?" Az-Zubair said, "I will." The Prophet said again, "Who will bring me the information about the enemy?" Az-Zubair said again, "I will." The Prophet said, "Every prophet had a disciple, and my disciple is Az-Zubair." Volume 4, Book 52, number 100, narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. When the Prophet called the people, Sadka, a sub-narrator, said, "Most probably that happened on the day of Al-Khandaq." Az-Zubair responded to the call, i.e., to act as a reconnoiter. The Prophet called the people again, and Az-Zubair responded to the call. The Prophet then said, "Every prophet had a disciple, and my disciple is Zubair bin al-Awwam." Volume 4, Book 52, number 101, narrated by Malik bin al-Huwairith. On my departure from the Prophet, he said to me and to a friend of mine, "You two, pronounce the Adhan and the Iqama for the prayer, and let the elder of you lead the prayer." Volume 4, Book 52, number 102, narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's apostle said, "Good will remain, as a permanent quality, in the foreheads of horses till the day of resurrection." Volume 4, Book 52, number 103, narrated by Ursa bin Alga. The Prophet said, "Good will remain, as a permanent quality, in the foreheads of horses till the day of resurrection," and narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's apostle said, "There is a blessing in the foreheads of horses." Volume 4, Book 52, number 104, narrated by Urwa al-Bariki. The Prophet said, "Good will remain as a permanent quality in the foreheads of horses for jihad till the day of resurrection, for they bring about either a reward in the hereafter or booty in this world." Volume 4, Book 52, number 105, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "If somebody keeps a horse in Allah's cause motivated by his faith in Allah and his belief in his promise, then he will be rewarded on the day of resurrection for what the horse has eaten or drunk and for its dung and urine." Volume 4, Book 52, number 106, narrated by Abdullah bin Abi Qatada from his father. Abu Qatada went out on a journey with Allah's apostle, but he was left behind with some of his companions who were in the state of Ihram. He himself was not in the state of Ihram. They saw an opener before he could see it. When they saw the opener, they did not speak anything till Abu Qatada saw it. So he rode over his horse called Al-Jarada and requested them to give him his lash, but they refused. So he himself took it and then attacked the opener and slaughtered it. He ate of its meat and his companions ate too, but they regretted their eating. When they met the Prophet, they asked him about it, and he asked, "Have you some of its meat left with you?" Abu Qatada replied, "Yes, we have its leg with us." So the Prophet took and ate it. Volume 4, Book 52, number 107, narrated by Saul. In our garden there was a horse belonging to the Prophet called Al-Luhaif, or Al-Lakif. Volume 4, Book 52, number 108, narrated by Mu'ad. I was a companion rider of the Prophet on a donkey called Ufair. The Prophet asked, "O Mu'ad, do you know what Allah's right on his slaves is, and what the right of his slaves on him is?" I replied, "Allah and his apostle know better." He said, "Allah's right on his slaves is that they should worship him alone, and should not worship any besides him, and slaves' right on Allah is that he should not punish him who worships none besides him." I said, "O Allah's apostle, should I not inform the people of this good news?" He said, "Do not inform them of it, lest they should depend on it absolutely." Volume 4, Book 52, number 109, narrated by Anas bin Malik. Once there was a feeling of fright in Medina, so the Prophet borrowed a horse belonging to us called Mandub, and he rode away on it. When the Prophet returned, he said, "I have not seen anything of fright, and I found it, that is this horse, very fast." Volume 4, Book 52, number 110. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. I heard the Prophet saying, "Evil omen is in three things: the horse, the woman, and the house." Volume 4, Book 52, number 111. Narrated by Sahl bin Sa'd Sa'idi. Allah's apostle said, "If there is any evil omen in anything, then it is in the woman, the horse, and the house." Volume 4, Book 52, number 112. Narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's apostle said, "Horses are kept for one of three purposes. For some people they are a source of reward, for some others they are a means of shelter, and for some others they are a source of sins. The one for whom they are a source of reward is he who keeps a horse for Allah's cause, that is jihad, tying it with a long tether on a meadow or in a garden, with the result that whatever it eats from the area of the meadow or the garden where it is tied will be counted as good deeds for his benefit, and if it should break its rope and jump over one or two hillocks, then all its dung and its footmarks will be written as good deeds for him, and if it passes by a river and drinks water from it even though he had no intention of watering it, even then he will get the reward for its drinking. As for the man for whom horses are a source of sins, he is the one who keeps a horse for the sake of pride and pretense, and showing enmity for Muslims. Such a horse will be a source of sins for him." When Allah's apostle was asked about donkeys, he replied, "Nothing has been revealed to me about them except this unique comprehensive verse. Then anyone who does an atom's or a small ant's weight of good shall see it, and anyone who does an atom's or a small ant's weight of evil shall see it." 101.7-8, Volume 4, Book 52, number 113. Narrated by Muslim from Abu Aqil from Abu al-Mutawakkil an-Naji. I called on Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari and said to him, "Relate to me what you have heard from Allah's apostle." He said, "I accompanied him on one of the journeys." Abu Aqil said, "I do not know whether that journey was for the purpose of jihad or umrah." When we were returning, Jabir continued, the Prophet said, "Whoever wants to return earlier to his family should hurry up." We set off and I was on a black-red tainted camel having no defect, and the people were behind me. While I was in that state the camel stopped suddenly, because of exhaustion. On that the Prophet said to me, "O Jabir, wait." Then he hit it once with his lash, and it started moving on a fast pace. He then said, "Will you sell the camel?" I replied in the affirmative when we reached Medina, and the Prophet went to the mosque along with his companions. I too went to him after tying the camel on the pavement at the mosque gate. Then I said to him, "This is your camel." He came out and started examining the camel and saying, "The camel is ours." Then the Prophet sent some awak, that is an amount of gold, saying, "Give it to Jabir." Then he asked, "Have you taken the full price of the camel?" I replied in the affirmative. He said, "Both the price and the camel are for you." Volume 4, Book 52, number 114, narrated by Anas bin Malik. There was a feeling of fright in Medina, so the Prophet borrowed a horse called Mandub belonging to Abu Talha and mounted it. On his return he said, "I did not see anything of fright and I found this horse very fast." Volume 4, Book 52, number 115, narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's apostle fixed 2 shares for the horse and 1 share for its rider from the war booty. Volume 4, Book 52, number 116, narrated by Abu Ishaq. Somebody asked Al-Bara bin Azib, "Did you flee deserting Allah's apostle during the battle of Hunain?" Al-Bara replied, "But Allah's apostle did not flee. The people of the tribe of Hawazin were good archers. When we met them, we attacked them, and they fled. When the Muslims started collecting the war booty, the pagans faced us with arrows, but Allah's apostle did not flee. No doubt I saw him on his white mule, and Abu Sufyan was holding its reins, and the Prophet was saying, 'I am the Prophet in truth, I am the son of Abdul Muttalib.'" Volume 4, Book 52, number 117, narrated by Ibn Umar. When the Prophet put his feet in the stirrup and the she-camel got up carrying him, he would start reciting Talbiyah at the mosque of Dhul Hulaifa. Volume 4, Book 52, number 118, narrated by Anas. The Prophet met them, that is the people, while he was riding an unsaddled horse with his sword slung over his shoulder. Volume 4, Book 52, number 119, narrated by Anas bin Malik. Once the people of Medina were frightened, so the Prophet rode a horse belonging to Abu Talha, and it ran slowly, or was of narrow paces. When he returned he said, "I found that is Abu Talha's horse very fast." After that the horse could not be surpassed in running. Volume 4, Book 52, number 120, narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. The Prophet arranged for a horse race amongst the horses that had been made lean to take place between Al-Hafya and Thaniyat al-Wada, that is, names of two places, and the horses which had not been mad, lean from Thaniyat to the mosque of Bani Zuraik. I was also amongst those who took part in that horse race. Sufyan, a sub-narrator, said, "The distance between Al-Hafya and Thaniya al-Wada is 5 or 6 miles, and between Thaniya and the mosque of Bani Zuraik is 1 mile." Volume 4, Book 52, number 121, narrated by Abdullah. The Prophet arranged for a horse race of the horses which had not been made lean. The area of the race was from Athaniya to the mosque of Bani Zuraik. The sub-narrator said, Abdullah bin Umar was amongst those who participated in that horse race. Volume 4, Book 52, number 122, narrated by Abu Ishaq from Musa bin Uqba from Mafia, from Ibn Umar, who said, Allah's apostle arranged a horse race amongst the horses that had been made lean, letting them start from Al-Hafya, and their limit, distance of running, was up to Thaniyat al-Wada. I asked Musa, what was the distance between the two places? Musa replied, 6 or 7 miles. He arranged a race of the horses which had not been made lean, sending them from Thaniyat al-Wada, and their limit was up to the mosque of Bani Zuraik. I asked, what was the distance between those two places? He replied, 1 mile or so. Ibn Umar was amongst those who participated in that horse race. Volume 4, Book 52, number 123, narrated by Anas. The she-camel of the Prophet was called Al-Adba. Volume 4, Book 52, number 124, narrated by Anas. The Prophet had a she-camel called Al-Adba, which could not be excelled in a race. Humaid, a sub-narrator said, or could hardly be excelled. Once a Bedouin came riding a camel below 6 years of age which surpasses it, that is Al-Adba, in the race. The Muslims felt it so much that the Prophet noticed their distress. He then said, it is Allah's law that he brings down whatever rises high in the world. Volume 4, Book 52, number 125, narrated by Ammar bin al-Harith. The Prophet did not leave anything behind him after his death except a white mule, his arms and a piece of land which he left to be given in charity. Volume 4, Book 52, number 126, narrated by Al-Bara. That a man asked him, O Abu Umara, did you flee on the day of the battle of Hunain? He replied, no, by Allah the Prophet did not flee, but the hasty people fled, and the people of the tribe of Hawazin attacked them with arrows, while the Prophet was riding his white mule, and Abu Sufyan bin al-Harith was holding its reins, and the Prophet was saying, I am the Prophet in truth, I am the son of Abdul Muttalib. Volume 4, Book 52, number 127, narrated by Aisha, the mother of the faithful believers. I requested the Prophet permit me to participate in Jihad, but he said, your Jihad is the performance of Hajj. Volume 4, Book 52, number 128, narrated by Aisha, the mother of the faithful believers. The Prophet was asked by his wives about the Jihad, and he replied, the best Jihad for you is the performance of Hajj. Volume 4, Book 52, number 129, narrated by Anas. Allah's apostle went to the daughter of Milhan and reclined there and slept, and then woke up, smiling. She asked, O Allah's apostle, what makes you smile? He replied, I dreamt that some people amongst my followers were sailing on the green sea in Allah's cause, resembling kings on thrones. She said, O Allah's apostle, invoke Allah to make me one of them. He said, O Allah, let her be one of them. Then he slept again and woke up and smiled. She asked him the same question and he gave the same reply. She said, invoke Allah to make me one of them. He replied, you will be amongst the first group of them. You will not be amongst the last. Later on she married Ubadah bin as-Samit, and then she sailed on the sea with Bint Karaza, Muawiyah's wife, for jihad. On her return she mounted her riding animal, which threw her down, breaking her neck, and she died on falling down. Volume 4, Book 52, number 130, narrated by Aisha. Whenever the Prophet intended to proceed on a journey, he used to draw lots amongst his wives, and would take the one upon whom the lot fell. Once, before setting out for jihad, he drew lots amongst us, and the lot came to me. So I went with the Prophet, and that happened after the revelation of the verse hijab, that is veiling. Volume 4, Book 52, number 131, narrated by Anas. On the day of the battle of Uhud, when some people retreated and left the Prophet, I saw Aisha bint Abu Bakr and Sulaim with their robes tucked up so that the bangles around their ankles were visible, hurrying with their water skins. In another narration it is said carrying the water skins on their backs. Then they would pour the water in the mouths of the people, and return to fill the water skins again, and came back again to pour water in the mouths of the people. Volume 4, Book 52, number 132, narrated by Thalaba bin Abi Malik. Umar bin al-Khattab distributed some garments amongst the women of Medina. One good garment remained, and one of those present with him said, "O chief of the believers, give this garment to your wife, the granddaughter of Allah's apostle." They meant Kulthum, the daughter of Ali. Umar said, Salit has more right to have it. Salit was amongst those Ansari women who had given the pledge of allegiance to Allah's apostle. Umar said, "She, that is Salit, used to carry the water skins for us on the day of Uhud." Volume 4, Book 52, number 133, narrated by Ar-Rubai bint Muawwid. We were in the company of the Prophet providing the wounded with water and treating them and bringing the killed to Medina from the battlefield. Volume 4, Book 52, number 134, narrated by Ar-Rabi bint Muawwid. We used to take part in holy battles with the Prophet by providing the people with water and serving them and bringing the killed and the wounded back to Medina. Volume 4, Book 52, number 135, narrated by Abu Musa. Amir was hit with an arrow in his knee, so I went to him and he asked me to remove the arrow. When I removed it, the water started dribbling from it. Then I went to the Prophet and told him about it. He said, "O Allah, forgive Ubayd Abu Amir." Volume 4, Book 52, number 136, narrated by Aisha. The Prophet was vigilant one night, and when he reached Medina, he said, "Would that a pious man from my companions guard me tonight?" Suddenly we heard the clatter of arms. He said, "Who is that?" He, the newcomer, replied, "I am Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas and have come to guard you." So the Prophet slept that night. Volume 4, Book 52, number 137, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Let the slave of dinar and dirham of quantify and kamisa, that is money and luxurious clothes, perish, for he is pleased if these things are given to him, and if not, he is displeased." Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Let the slave of dinar and dirham, of quantify and kamisa perish, as he is pleased if these things are given to him, and if not, he is displeased. Let such a person perish and relapse, and if he is pierced with a thorn, let him not find anyone to take it out for him. Paradise is for him who holds the reins of his horse to strive in Allah's cause, with his hair unkempt and feet covered with dust. If he is appointed in the vanguard, he is perfectly satisfied with his post of guarding, and if he is appointed in the rearward, he accepts his post with satisfaction. He is so simple and unambiguous that, if he asks for permission, he is not permitted, and if he intercedes, his intercession is not accepted." Volume 4, Book 52, number 138, narrated by Anas. I was in the company of Jabir bin Abdullah on a journey, and he used to serve me though he was older than I. Jarir said, "I saw the Ansar doing a thing that is showing great reverence to the Prophet, for which I have vowed that whenever I meet any of them, I will serve him." Volume 4, Book 52, number 139, narrated by Anas bin Malik. I went along with the Prophet to Khaybar so as to serve him. Later on, when the Prophet returned, he, on seeing the Uhud mountain, said, "This is a mountain that loves us and is loved by us." Then he pointed to Medina with his hand, saying, "O Allah, I make the area which is in between Medina's two mountains a sanctuary, as Abraham made Mecca a sanctuary. O Allah, bless us in our saw and mud, that is units of measuring." Volume 4, Book 52, number 140, narrated by Anas. We were with the Prophet on a journey, and the only shade one could have was the shade made by one's own garment. Those who fasted did not do any work, and those who did not fast served the camels, and brought the water on them, and treated the sick and wounded. So the Prophet said, "Today those who were not fasting took all the reward." Volume 4, Book 52, number 141, narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Charity is obligatory every day on every joint of a human being. If one helps a person in matters concerning his riding animal by helping him to ride it or by lifting his luggage onto it, all this will be regarded charity. A good word, and every step one takes to offer the compulsory congregational prayer, is regarded as charity, and guiding somebody on the road is regarded as charity." Volume 4, Book 52, number 142, narrated by Sal bin Saad Asadi. Allah's apostle said, "To guard Muslims from infidels in Allah's cause for one day is better than the world and whatever is on its surface, and a place in paradise as small as that occupied by the whip of one of you is better than the world and whatever is on its surface. And a morning's or an evening's journey which a slave person travels in Allah's cause is better than the world and whatever is on its surface." Thanks for watching and stay curious.